Hello, I am Mrs. Arnold, and today we are learning about sea floor spreading. The main idea of the video is oceanic crust forms at ocean ridges and becomes part of the sea floor. Questions you should be able to answer at the end: what evidence led to the discovery of seafloor spreading? What is the significance of magnetic patterns on the seafloor? And how is the process of seafloor spreading explained? In the mid 1900s, so until the mid 1900s, actually, many people thought that the ocean floor was flat and that oceanic crust was unchanging and older than continental crust. But advances in technology in the 1940s and 1950s showed these two ideas were wrong. One technology that was used was the magnetometer. And what this does is that it detects small changes in magnetic fields. And when it's towed behind a ship, it records the magnetic field generated by ocean floor rocks. So one thing to know is that this technology actually came about because during World War II, it was being used to detect submarines. Sonar, we've mentioned before, so you guys should know this, but it uses sound waves to map the topography of the ocean floor. Using this technology, scientists discovered vast underwater mountain chains called ocean ridges that run along the bottom of the ocean floor. So ocean ridges are vast underwater mountain chains. And actually, the longest continuous mountain chain in the world is located under the sea. And they can be very tall, as high as 3 kilometers. Later, scientists discovered that earthquakes and volcanoes happen along ridges. The maps generated by sonar data also revealed that underwater mountain chains had counterparts called deep sea trenches. And these deep sea trenches are narrow, elongated depression in the ocean floor. And so this particular map that we have right here shows the ridges in the trenches that we have. The ridge that we focus on the most in this class is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And the trench that we are going to talk about is the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is the deepest trench in the world. How deep, you might ask? It is 11 kilometers deep. And so that means that Mount Everest, which is the world's tallest mountain, it is 9 kilometers tall. So Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain, can fit inside this trench with 6 Empire State Buildings stacked on top. So all stacked on top of one another. So it is a very deep trench. The discovery of ridges and trenches puzzled geologists for more than a decade. They had many questions. So some of these questions were, what could have formed a underwater mountain range that extended around the Earth? So some are questions. So what formed the underwater mountain range? Another question was the source of volcanism associated with these mountains? And a third question that they had was, what forces could depress Earth's crust enough to create trenches nearly 6 times as deep as the Grand Canyon? Scientists took samples of deep sea rock and discovered a few things. The first thing was that rocks near deep sea ridges, so the mountains, were younger. And the second thing they discovered was the age of ocean rock increases with distance from the ridge. So the rocks near the ridge were younger, and the age is increasing as you go away from the ridge. So how do oceanic crust and continental crust differ? Oceanic crust, contrary to what was previously believed, was found to be younger than continental crust. In fact, the oldest oceanic crust is only 180 million years old. So the question then is, we know that oceans have been around for nearly as long as the planet, which is 4.5 billion years. What happened to the older oceanic crust? Um, and then, of course, we wrote on the last slide, we're right here again, younger rocks are near the ridge, and the age consistently increases with distance from ridge. And also oceanic crust is thinner. What that is referring to is the sediments. The sediments are only a few hundred meters thick. So scientists hypothesized that the relatively thin layer of ocean sediments was related to the age of the ocean crust because they can observe that as they move further away from the ocean ridge, that the sediment consistently gets thicker. The sediment increases in thickness with distance from the ocean ridge. And you can, excuse me, and you can see that happening in this picture here. So as we move away from the ridge, the sediment is getting thicker. So on the other hand, we have continental crust. In the oldest continental crust that we have dates at 4 billion years old. And also, continental crust is thick, as much as 20 kilometers. Remember, this is only a few hundred meters. This is a kilometer. And remember, a kilometer is 1,000 meters. Earth's magnetic field. So Earth's magnetic field is generated by the flow. Let me get my highlighter. It's generated by the flow of molten iron in the outer core. This is why compass needles point north. A magnetic reversal happens when the flow in the outer core changes, and that makes Earth's magnetic field change direction. So this is a picture of a normal, what we call a normal magnetic field when the polarity is pointing north. And this is a picture of the reverse magnetic field when the field is opposite to the present field. So it would be pointing south. So we have normal polarity, which is where the magnetic field has same orientation as our present field. And then there is reversed polarity. And this is where the magnetic field is opposite. There is a field called paleomagnetism, which studies the history of Earth's magnetic field. The data gathered from paleomagnetic studies of continental lava allows scientists to construct a magnetic polarity timescale. So how does that happen? The lava has iron-bearing minerals that crystallize when lava solidifies. So let's say that we have an eruption of some sort and we got lava flowing around. That lava, the minerals in the lava, the iron-bearing minerals in the lava is going to align with the current field, magnetic field. And depending on the way that the field aligns, the scientists can construct a magnetic polarity timescale. This figure 11 is in your textbook. You can see it says periods of normal polarity alternate with periods of reverse polarity. Long-term changes in Earth's magnetic fields, called epochs, are shown here. Short-term changes are called events. So we can see where they've mapped out the long-term changes of the magnetic field. So they do this by studying the lava in which way the crystals in the lava are aligned. So in this case, right here, they were aligned with normal polarity. In this case, they were aligned with reverse polarity. This leads to magnetic symmetry. The reversals in the polarity of Earth's magnetic field are recorded in the rocks that make up the ocean floor. So oceanic crust is different than continental crust in one other way, because it's made of I'm going to spell this wrong. Basaltic rock. Continental crust is made of granite. And this basaltic rock contains a lot of iron. And therefore, that is going to align with the magnetic field as it crystallizes. And what you can see here is that we have the mid-ocean, we have the ridge in the ocean. And then on either side of the ridge, we have the different polarities that were in place. So the magnetic pattern on opposite side of ridge has the same age in width. So this Gilbert age and width is the same as the Gilbert on the other side, age and width. And that's why they're both named Gilbert, because we know that they were laid down from 3.3 to 5 million years ago. Both of those polarities were both of the, I guess, ocean floor. So by matching the patterns on the seafloor with a known pattern of reversals on land, scientists were able to determine the age of the ocean floor from magnetic recording. This created these isochrone maps of the ocean floor that you see here. An isochrone is an imaginary line on a map that shows the points that have the same age. That means that they form at the same time. That's just a time. What you see here in this picture, so young is going to be redder, and as we get older, it turns, it's recorded as blue. But you can see in the picture that we have relatively young ocean floor crust near the ridges. And as we move away from the ridge, that's when we get our older crust. The older crust is found along deep sea trenches. So younger crust is at the ridges, older crust is at the trenches. Seafloor spreading is the theory that explains how new oceanic crust is formed at ocean ridges and destroyed at deep sea trenches. So that tells us why we don't see older oceanic crust, because it gets destroyed at the deep sea trenches. This is a diagram that shows how deep sea seafloor spreading works. So during seafloor spreading, magma rises because it's hotter and less dense than the surrounding rock, so that's why it rises. And is forced towards the surface of crust along an ocean ridge. Okay. And then you can see when it fills the gap that is created and when it solidifies, it becomes new oceanic crust. So as ridge spreads apart, rising magma fills the gap. And then new ocean floor is made. So these three things explain basically what's happening with our first picture here. The second picture is talking about how the continuous spreading and intrusion of magma result in addition of new oceanic crust. So more magma keeps coming up and being added and solidifying and making new crust. The two halves of the oceanic crust spread apart slowly and move apart like a conveyor belt. And at the far edges of the oceanic crust, it sinks beneath the continental crust. That's because it's more dense, so it goes under. As it descends, water in the minerals is released, which helps melt the overlying mantle, forming magma. The magma rises and forms part of the continental crust. So at the far edges of the oceanic crust, it sinks beneath the continental crust. It is being subducted. So once again, we see our new crust made at ridges, our older crust is subducted, that's the fancy terminology, and recycled at trenches. Seafloor spreading is the missing link to complete the model of continental drift. Remember, Wegener could not explain how the continents are moving. Unlike what he said, that continents were pushing through rock, that isn't happening. What we know now is that continents are passengers that ride along while ocean crust slowly moves away from ocean ridges. This is figure 15 from your textbook. It shows Iceland. The entire island of Iceland lies on the Mid-Atlantic Ocean spreading center, so the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Because the seafloor is spreading, Iceland is growing larger. In 1783, more than 12 cubic kilometers of lava erupted, enough to pave the entire U.S. interstate freeway system to a depth of 10 meters. So today we learned how new seafloor is made and how the process of seafloor spreading is what is driving the continents apart.